Hi everyone, welcome back to Lulumath. This video is on factoring trinomials with more than one variable. And the background knowledge that you're going to need is you will need to know how to factor a trinomial by either trial and error using unFOIL, or trial and error using the geometric model, or decomposition. And all three of these videos are available to you to use as a refresher if you need it. Because we've talked about three different ways to do this factoring, and because I have three questions in this video, I'm going to do one question per method. So in this example here, I'm going to use the unFOIL method. So if we have 6x squared plus 5xy minus 25y squared, for my first, I know that it will give me this 6x squared here. For my last, I know that it will give me this negative 25y squared. And I know that my outer and my inner will collect together to give me this 5xy. So let's go ahead and list out factors of 6 right here. So we'll have 1 and 6, and we will have 2 times 3. And those are the only factors of 6. And now let's look at factors of this 25 here. I know it's a negative 25, but we'll place our signs at the end. So we know we can do 1 and 25, or we can do 5 times 5. We will worry about our variables after we start placing some numbers in our trials. So on that note, let's go ahead and do our first trial. So since our first terms will multiply together to give us the 6x squared, I will try 1 and 6 here first. So I'm going to put a 1 and a 6. And I know I want x squared, but I'm not sure what I should put for my variables quite yet. So I will revisit that in a couple of moments. Now I know my last terms should multiply together to give me this negative 25y squared. I'm going to place my numbers first. So I'll try a 1 here and a 25 here. And I know that my outer and my inner are going to give me 5xy. So this is where I'm going to start to figure out, well, how should I place my variables? If I put an x here and an x here, then x times x gives us the x squared we're looking for. And if I put a y here and a y here, then y times this y will give us the y squared that we're looking for over here. Now, if I were to do my outer, it would be 1x times 25y, and 1 times 25 is 25xy, which matches the variable that we're looking for here. So the xy is what we want, so that tells us that we placed the x's here and the y's here in the right places. Now let's try our inner. 1y times 6x, 1 times 6 is 6, and then y times x is yx, but the commutative property says I can say xy, which makes these a little bit easier to see that they are like terms. Regardless, 25 and 6, there's no way that those two numbers could give me a 5, so trial number 1 we know is not going to work. All right, so let's go ahead with trial number 2. And I'm going to keep the 1x here and the 6x here, but I'm going to swap this 1y and this 25y. So I will put 25y in my first binomial and 1y in my second binomial. And remember, 1y and y are the same thing. So for my outer, I will get 1x times y, which is 1xy. And for my inner, I will get 25y times 6x, and 25 times 6 is 150, and then x times y is just xy. And again, I'm not going to get 5xy from that, so we will cross off trial number 2. Okay, so before we get to trial number 3, we know that in trials 1 and 2, this 1 and 6 combined with this 1 and 25 are not going to work. So I'm going to try 1 and 6 combined with 5 and 5 instead. So here I will still put 1x and 6x, but now instead of 1 and 25, I will use 5y and 5y. Our outer here, x times 5y, is 5xy. And our inner here, 5y times 6x is 30xy. And again, I cannot get this 5xy that I'm looking for here. So trial number 3 does not work, which means that 1 and 6 combined with the 1 and the 25 or the 5 and the 5 is just not going to work. We don't need to do a swap here because they're identical numbers. So we can cross off 1 and 6, and for trial number 4, we're going to use this 2 and 3 here. So I'll have 2x here, I'll have 3x here, And then since we were using 5 before, let's continue with this 5. So I'll put 5y here and 5y there. When I do my outer here, 2x times 5y is 10xy. And then when I do my inner here, 5y times 3x is 15xy. And I can get a 5xy from that if my 15xy is positive and my 10xy is negative. Well, if 15xy is positive, then that tells us that this 5y here has to be positive. And if this 10xy here is negative, that tells us that this 5y right here has to be a negative, which makes our final answer for this expression to be factored as 2x plus 5y multiplied by 3x minus 5y. So this is our final answer. Okay, so in our next example, where we're asked to factor 10x squared plus 19xy cubed plus 6y to the power of 6, I'm going to use trial and error for this method, but I'm going to use the box version or the geometric version of this method. So for trial number 1, we need to fill in all of the information that we know into our box. So we know that this 10x squared right here has to go in the top left corner. And we know this 6y to the power of 6 is going to go into the bottom right corner. And we know that this middle box is going to be what we get when we combine this box and this box together. And those two boxes together will give us this 19xy to the power of 3. So I'm going to look for what numbers and variables I can multiply together to give me this 10x squared here. So let's make a list of factors of 10. Well, we can do 1 times 10, or we can do 2 times 5, okay? And then we also know that this term here multiplied by this term here is going to give us this 6y to the power of 6. So let's look for some factors of 6. So we can do 1 and 6, or we can do 2 and 3. Let's go ahead and start to do some guessing and checking. So I'm going to start this time backwards. So I'm going to try with this 2 and this 5, okay? So I will put 2 here and I will put 5 here. And I know that I want just a single x here from this box and this box. So that means I'm going to have an x and an x, because x times x is x squared. But when I try to figure out what goes in this box, it's going to be this side length right here. So I need only an x, because this is x to the power of 1 right here. Then I'm going to place my factors of 6 in here. Same thing, I'm going to work backwards this time just because I feel like it. So I'm going to place my 2 here and my 3 here, but I need y to the power of 6. So I'm going to try y to the power of 3, y to the power of 3, because I see this y to the power of 3 here, and y to the power of 3 times y to the power of 3 is y to the power of 6. Generally, if this becomes a trinomial, then you just want to find the square root of these two variables here when we are doing our factoring. That will help us out significantly. So to determine what goes in this box here, I would multiply this 5x right here by this 2y to the power of 3 right here. And 5 times 2 is 10, and then xy to the power of 3 is just xy to the power of 3. Then to figure out what goes in this box here, I would do 3 times 2, which is 6, and then I've got xy to the power of 3 here. And 10 and 6, there's no way that I can get a 19 from that, which tells us that trial number 1 does not work. So let's go ahead and do trial number 2. So for trial number 2, we still know that that 10x squared is going to go in our top left box, that our 6y to the power of 6 is still going to go in our bottom right box, and that this 19xy to the power of 3 is going to be the combination of these two boxes that we have here. So I'm still going to stick with the 2 and the 5 and the 2 and the 3, but I'm going to change the order around. So I'll keep the 2x here and the 5x here, but I'm going to swap this 2y to the power of 3 with this 3y to the power of 3. I will have 3y to the power of 3 up here and then 2y to the power of 3 down here. Now, this box here will be the product of this 5x by this 3y to the power of 3, and 5 times 3 is 15, and xy to the power of 3 is just xy to the power of 3. In this box over here, my bottom left box, I'm going to multiply 2y to the power of 3 by this 2x right here. So I end up getting 2 times 2 is 4, and then xy to the power of 3. And when I add 15 and 4 together, I get this 19, and they're xy to the power of 3. So that means that this is going to work for us. This is excellent. This is only going to work if the 15xy to the power of 3 is positive, and this 4xy to the power of 3 is also positive. So since this is positive, that means that this 3y to the power of 3 up here has to be positive. And since this 4 is positive, that means that this 2y to the power of 3 over here has to be positive. So our two binomials being multiplied together are these two right here, which makes my final answer 2x plus 3y to the power of 3 multiplied by 5x plus 2y to the power of 3. Okay, in our last example, we're asked to factor 3x to the power of 4 minus 10x squared y plus 8y squared, and I'm going to use the method of decomposition. So remember, the first thing that we want to do is multiply a by c. Now remember, our a value is 3 and our c value is 8. So I'm going to multiply 3 by 8, and I end up getting 24. Then I want to find the factors of AC, the product of A times C, which is this 24 right here. So some factors of 24 are 1 and 24. I could do 2 times 12. I could do 3 times 8, or I could do 4 times 6. Once I do that, I want to choose the set that will give us this b value that we have here, which is this negative 10. So the only way that I can get a negative 10 from any one of these numbers here is from my 4 and my 6, because if I have negative 4 and negative 6, they multiply together to give me this 24 I'm looking for, but they add up together to give me negative 10. Then I need to break up this b value right here into the two factors that I chose. So I am going to copy down this 3x to the power of 4, but then I'm going to break up this negative 10x squared y into negative 4x squared y and negative 6x squared y. And then I can just copy down this plus 8y squared. And now the last thing I need to do is just simply factor by grouping. I will group my first two terms together here, and then I will group my second two terms together over here. Looking at my first two terms, I've got 3x to the power of 4 minus 4x squared y, and 3 and negative 4 don't have anything in common, but we do have an x to the power of 4 and an x to the power of 2. So our GCF is going to be x to the power of 2. There's no y in common, so I'm not going to include that. Now, when I factor that out of my first term that I have here, 3 divided by this invisible 1 is 3, and then x to the power of 4 divided by x to the power of 2 is just x to the power of 2. Then when I divide this negative 4x squared y by x squared, negative 4 is being divided by 1, which is just negative 4. X squared divided by x squared is 1. They cancel each other out, and then I have a y left over. Now let's go ahead and factor our second group. So because this has a leading coefficient of a negative, I'm going to factor out a negative value here. And 6 and 8 are both divisible by 2, so I'll take out a 2, and then I have a y to the power of 1 in common. So I'm going to factor out minus 2y. Well, negative 6 divided by negative 2 is positive 3. X squared is not being divided by anything, so I have an x squared, and the y's cancel. Then 8 divided by negative 2 is negative 4, and then y to the power of 2 divided by y to the power of 1 is just a y right here. Now, looking at this expression that we have here, in our first group we have a 3x squared minus 4y, and in our second group we have a 3x squared minus 4y as well. So I'm going to take out 3x squared minus 4y. In my red group up here, I have an x squared left over when I take out this 3x squared minus 4y. And in my green group right here, I have a minus 2y left over when I take out this 3x squared minus 4y. And this is going to be my final answer. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please comment below or reach out at lulumath.com, where you can also find blank or completed notes from this video. If this video was useful to you, don't forget to subscribe for more videos and share with your peers. Thank you. See you next time.